in joining us on pretty short notice, but I really appreciate this. As a new member of Congress, it's important. I believe in visuals and hearing from the people that are the experts. As I've been, working with our county executive and our assemblyman and our state senator, on lake issues and trying to pursue funding sources, I really wanted to hear directly from all the different stakeholders at the table so that I can be more educated as to what the process is. Our legislator Pierre, came with a delegation to our office in Washington. I think we said at that point I would, spend a day on the lake and try to learn as much as I could in this, so I could be the best advocate possible, because I believe our fortunes in this county are tied to this lake and the health of this lake, and I want to be a full partner in that and spend my time in Congress to do our very best to create a better legacy for this lake, and whatever federal funding sources that I can help to secure in that. I think I really want to know the full story from your perspective. So I think it'd be great if, and I appreciate you taking some time to share some information with me, so I can hear it directly from you. But if we can kind of go around the table and introduce ourselves, I think that'd be very helpful. Why don't we?
Name's Wendel. The state provides about $2 million directly in support of lake maintenance. That includes a bid tax of $820,000 that the county legislature implements. It's authorized by the state. In addition, we have about $240,000 that we have direct appropriations to the Chautauqua Lake Association, Chautauqua Partners, Lake Partners. The DEC maintains a fish hatchery at Gas Point, and about 12 access points, the largest of course being Long Point, but also Midway Park and one here in Eames. In addition, the state provides about $400 million annually in our environmental conservation fund, which we get about, I think we have about $4 million. Dave would probably know better, about $4 million ongoing right now on watershed management projects. Pierre has taken a great lead on the county legislature and PJ in expanding the sewer lines. That I think got about $16 million in state low interest funding. So that's kind of what the state's role has been at this point. The DEC, of course, state agency, signs off on all permits, which includes all the herbicide applications, and Mike Latone is involved in that, as well as any weed cutting that's too close to or within 500 feet of a watershed. John Ford's the head of the Lake Association. So that's a little bit of an overview on what the state's rules are.
Pierre Chagnon, Chairman of the Chautauqua County Legislature, and Congressman, like I told you before, I could talk all day about Chautauqua Lake. There are very many aspects to Chautauqua Lake. It is a very diverse ecosystem, and we have people here who are concerned about the watershed, people who are concerned about the inlet, the lake itself. We have our generous funders who've been very supportive of us. We have the Chautauqua Lake Alliance represented here today. Chautauqua Institution, which is so dependent upon the lake. I don't want to steal anybody's thunder, so with that, I'm going to pass the baton.
Congressman, I'm John Ford. I'm presently the president of the CLA board, and we're the outfit that cleans up the shoreline before and after the summer season, and we mow the lake. We clean up the weeds during the summer.
Mike Latone, Chautauqua Lake Partnership, and I'm also a board member of the Alliance. Been involved, I think, since 2017. A bunch of neighbors got together. We weren't happy with what we were seeing on the lake and thought, how can we help? And I think we've done that. We've accomplished a lot and added another tool to Chautauqua Lake, being herbicide treatment and different method. So we also supplied this year a Mobi-Track to Harbor Hotel. We partnered with them and supplied them with a Mobi-Track to help their lakefront. So we're trying different avenues to make things.
Tell me what a Mobi-Track is.
That is a little machine that is amphibious in the water and can pick up weeds without putting people in the water. So a little deeper water works well, and we try to get people away from the bad stuff that we've had in some areas. So it's worked out very well.
Great. Thank you very much.
Wendel Perry, Executive Director of the Chautauqua Lake and Watershed Management Alliance. We're a not-for-profit organization, member organization, so most everybody, if not everybody at this table, I should stand up and say thank you and shake their hands as part of my introduction, because everyone here is either a member of the Alliance or has been instrumental in its formation and its operation since around 2015. So among our members are the institution, the county, the CLP, the CLA, the Watershed Conservancy, basically every alphabet name that you'll hear going around the table. We try to work together. We try to facilitate as much collaboration and coordination as possible. We try to help prioritize ideas and work and money from both the local side and the state side. And we try to also facilitate a stronger understanding of data resources and also trying to improve the types of data and the amounts of data that are being collected, not on our own, but through our partners, and try to see how those bits of information can all be cohesively wound together into a better understanding of the lake and the work we're doing on the lake, and also its condition, which may or may not be a result of that work. So thank you very much for letting me be here and be part of this.
My name is Whitney Gleason, and I'm the Executive Director of the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy. And we do a lot of the preventative maintenance work around the lake. We work countywide. So we're also a land trust. We hold 36 nature preserves throughout the county. But we also work with private landowners and businesses to help them do best management practices for our waterways on their private lands. And then we also work very closely with Chautauqua County Soil and Water Conservation District to do a lot of projects on our streams, whether that's stream bank restoration work to help prevent soil erosion, sedimentation to the lake, and then also some stormwater infrastructure projects throughout the county to help keep things from getting into the lake in the first place.
Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Andrew Nixon, I'm with Chautauqua County Visitors Bureau. We're the tourism promotion agency for the county, and we're obviously very concerned with the health and reputation of Chautauqua Lake, which is one of the foundational cornerstones of the area's tourism industry. So anything we can do to improve is very important.
Bob, what do you anticipate the economic impact of Chautauqua Lake? Right.
It's hard to put a number on it, but you know, the economic impact of direct visitor spending is probably $275 to $280 million in direct spending. The majority of which, or 50% of which, occurs just in July and August, so prime lake use time. And you know, a good half of that is dependent on Chautauqua Lake, at least half that. And Chautauqua Lake going along with Chautauqua Institution operating its program in a lake setting. So at least 50%, if not more, of the tourism industry is dependent on the lake, the environment, and the things happening on and around the lake.
I'm David Good, and I'm the Chautauqua County Watershed Coordinator. I administrate the 2% occupancy tax for lakes and waterways, but I also interface with the Army Corps to keep our harbors on Lake Erie open, running, and properly maintained, as well as try to bring federal dollars into the Chautauqua Lake watershed. And also the person who puts out a lot of brush fires, often being the first in line to be called by the public with issues.
Thank you. I'm Randy Holcomb, and I am here on behalf of Senator George Borrello, and he had every intention of being here, but at the last minute that got changed, which happens at times. So I appreciate you having me here, and I'm also the mayor of the Village of Lake. Thank you.
Two hats.
If you didn't say it, I was going to interrupt and interject.
I love it. I'm Tori Ergang. I'm the
executive director at the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation. And the Chautauqua Region Community Foundation has had a long involvement in being supportive of lake and watershed programs and organizations, and deep involvement in the formation, creation of the Alliance. My predecessor served with others around this table in helping to develop a structure that they felt that at the time was believed to bring added value to not just the work that funders were doing, but the work of the lake. And we've been a part of what I think it's called the consolidated funding proposal, or the consolidated funding approach for Chautauqua Lake. So we don't do grant making directly to lake and watershed organizations anymore. We pass all of those dollars through the Chautauqua Lake Alliance, trusting their processes and their analysis and scoring to make better decisions that perhaps our board members felt equipped to make.
Rewind that and say it again. I'm Randy Ordinas, president of the Lene Foundation, long-term supporters of lake, watershed, and other environmental concerns in our area. We also fund the Alliance. We're not experts. We certainly don't understand the lake, so that's why we're funding the Alliance, and Randall does a very good job. In addition, we do spend, the Community Foundation is wholly there. We work with Land Conservancy as well, Western New York Land Conservancy, the Chautauqua Watershed Conservancy, to help build out the properties that should be held in the trust and worked upon and improved upon. So we get a little further away, but nonetheless, we're simply a funder of good ideas.
I'm Linda Swanson from the Sheldon Foundation in Jamestown, and these are my, this is the troika that, that primarily funnels our funding to the Alliance. I was part of the original group to look at a model that could work for how could we do this smarter, with the idea that we wanted to be able to leverage state and federal dollars going through the Alliance, and also been through a couple of the lake plans, a couple of reiterations of how to, the process of how to score and allocate those decisions with the same concern. We have volunteer board members that are not science experts on the lake, so it was difficult for them to discern where to put those dollars. So prior, I asked my assistant to spit out some reports. So from '88 to 2017, we funded the Chautauqua Lake Association directly at $1.2 million over 17 grants. And the Watershed Conservancy from 1997 to 2016, $347,000, and then we concentrated just on the Alliance. So since 2014, we've put $2.2 million over 10 grants to the Alliance. And this year we did an extraordinary grant of $500,000 for the Jefferson project that we don't anticipate being able to do again. But generally been doing around $250,000 a year. So we pale in comparison to what the state does, but our idea is to gap what the state doesn't do, wrap around those not-for-profit organizations that are working actively in the watershed and the lake.
I should say, by the way, the foundations provide about $695,000 a year, which is a huge asset.
But great to see you again. Michael Hill, president of Chautauqua Institution. Our work around the lake really recognizes a few things. One, all of the tourism impact that everyone talked about. We also know that the contribution the institution makes to the region wouldn't be possible if the lake weren't healthy. It's a prime asset for us as we attract people from around the world to come to Chautauqua County. We're one of the few places that also take our drinking water directly from the lake. So our residents have, of course, care about recreation, care about the beauty of it that adds to our program, but it's an essential livelihood piece for us because the more than 1,000 homes that are on the institution grounds pull their water from the lake. So approximately 6 years ago, we dedicated as part of our strategic planning efforts and our 150th anniversary celebrations, really getting deep into helping with research and convening To date, we've donated about $4.5 million of our own money to help launch the Jefferson project. And this year, we're so grateful to our partners in the county and the foundations for carrying that load as we try to figure out what's best happening in the lake. We've also been really proud to be a site for lake research conferences with all of our local partners, which I think has been wonderful to pull all of the disparate work that's happening around this lake together into one body so that we can amplify all the different things that we're learning. So grateful to be here and joined by my colleague who can introduce himself.
Thank you. I'm John Shedd. I'm Vice President of Campus Planning and Operations at Chautauqua Institution. I've had the privilege of meeting up with these people for almost a decade now, I think, working passionately toward lake efforts. And passionate is probably a mild word with this group because we're all interested in saving the lake one way or another. I was also appointed to the prior governor's steering committee for Chautauqua Lake. So we've been exploring these opportunities of obtaining funding from the state of New York and federal funding as much as possible. The Chautauqua Institution has set our own model standard for trying to create watershed projects that will keep the nitrogen and phosphorus out of the lake. So we've created many rain gardens and wetlands, and we call them no-mow zones along the shoreline, and some inshore, in-lake projects right at the shoreline to try to filter the nutrient loads out of the water, the storm water, before it gets into the lake, to help prevent some of what we believe are the most difficult problems with the lake, which is the harmful algal blooms, as well as the macrophyte weed population in the lake. So we've dedicated millions and millions of dollars toward those efforts of projects that will do that. Chautauqua Institution also, as a historic facility, we created one of the very first wastewater treatment plants in the country in the late 1800s to protect the lake water back when nobody really knew the effect of that. So we've been involved in lake matters forever at Chautauqua Institution, and we continue to push forward with those. And we appreciate every ounce of help that we can get from the state. PJ and our county have been incredibly helpful with the projects we've been working on, as well as all the other people around this table. Thank you so much, and thanks for letting us be involved.
Well, if you don't know me, I'm not doing my job. I will say, to talk about everything everybody's mentioned already before. Everybody here is what I would consider a friend. I think Whitney and Randy probably being the newest of the group, but there isn't anybody at this table that I haven't picked up the phone and personally called prior to being executive or now being executive. The historical piece, and Linda kind of downplayed, but Linda was very instrumental, at least in my mind, because four of us, myself, Fred Crosscut, Vince Horgan, and Mark Tarbright, got off then Summer Wind and said someone needs to start to champion this lake. It was right around an election time, so we thought, what better way to the people that represent the lake to be leading the charge. So thus we started this formation of what would then become the Alliance through the tutelage of Vince. But I remember Linda's, one of the very first meetings we had at the North Harmony Senior Center. And, you listen to, prior to Tori was Randy, and, being lightly accosted at Wegmans or shopping or church or walking down the street, hey, I got this great project and we need you to fund us. And instead of getting hit all the time, and the foundations have done a great job to say, we're not the scientists, we don't know. And I remember Linda's point was, I just don't know what the best projects are. And that wasn't in a slight, but just a generalization is, they're funders, just like an investor. We're going to come and invest in what we feel is a worthwhile project. And the lake obviously is. So thus, a couple of years later, we had the formation of the Alliance. And the Alliance is a key in this whole cog. As John had said, passion is a very mild way to put it. Somebody once said to me recently, do you want to die on this hill with Chautauqua Lake? And I don't think it's dying on a hill, but I'm going to die trying to protect what we're doing. At this point, we don't know exactly what's working. A lot of things are working. I met with John Jablonski today, the former executive director, and he feels, maybe we're starting to see the results of our wastewater management that we have around Chautauqua Lake. Yeah, Probably. We just don't know. Everybody who's sitting here, you know, that deals with the lake has said, you know, we had a reduction in herbicide permits this year. We had a very low ice pack, and we're going to get crushed with weeds. I anticipated, I'm like, you know, pick your bootstraps up, buddy, because you're going to take it on the chin this year. And right now, as you know, we were out a couple weeks ago, it's like, where are they, right? We don't know where the weeds are. They're there, yes, but not in the abundance that we really anticipated. So everyone here plays a large part. But I think what we noticed out there is what we don't know. We've worked closely with DEC. Julie Barrett O'Neill, as you've spoken with, has been a big partner in this, and she's really excited about efforts that are taking place. You know, we put this fact sheet together because, you know, every time we start to talk about this, you know, people, we don't know how much is spent in the lake. We do. We put this fact sheet out a little bit earlier in the year, but, you know, for some reason, you know, we... Yeah, but that's okay. We're going to get it to you now, so exactly we know, you know, where the funding is, and we've known where the funding is. And as people have come to us, whether it was the occupancy tax increase or now this boat user fee that we're looking at, you know, we know how much funding we have, and Randall can tell you, and so can Dave McCoy and others that are on the Alliance. There are more efforts out there, but we don't have the funding. So, you know, if there was 10 million, would we have 10 million a project? Probably. And I think 10 million worthwhile, you know, projects in the lakes around not only Chautauqua Lake, but, you know, our people have known, and I say the people, those who, you know, participate in lake management, that the funds are limited, so they understand how much, you know, how much they can get involved. Made some great strides. The MOBA tracks, probably get you to drive with it, pretty simple. But just when you stop, let go, because if you try to hang on and guide it, it look like you're riding a mechanical bull. But it's really been an instrumental piece in helping clean the lake. Don Emhart in the town of Chautauqua has been instrumental in that. You know, if you build it, they will come. Well, Mike was instrumental along with the partnership of buying it, helping us buy a MOBA track for the hotel, the largest investment, you know, currently on the lake. Where they were the ducks were walking on the water last year. There were so many weeds, and wouldn't you know, they buy it this year, and you can probably pull it out with a pitchfork. You know, the amount of weeds. So efforts are all working. We're all working together feverishly. As you know, that's why we came to Washington. The big picture we're looking at, a couple of things. One, it's the aquatic ecosystem restoration project that you've been working with, and very thankful for all of your efforts. That piece of funding to get that new start, as you know, is critical. It's like buying a ticket into the game. Once we get the ticket, then we're able to start to, you know, utilize more of the Army Corps. A big reason why we sponsored the Jefferson Project this year, because the Army Corps, as Pierre said, really excited about the science that they're bringing from the Jefferson Project. So again, you know, there's a lot of things we could talk about. You know, theoretically, if you put a small, you know, rubber duck in the beginning of Chautauqua Lake outside of my office, it will flow down to the mouth of the Mississippi in New Orleans. So we are the headwaters of the Mississippi River, which people often overlook. Uniquely in Chautauqua County, the Army Corps in the Buffalo office is in charge of Lake Erie, and in the Pittsburgh office they're in charge of the lake. So we are unique, and we just we always have these nuances. But everybody here is instrumental. And we really thank you so much for your time, your efforts, what you're doing, you know. And I met with different groups this year, more of our boots on the ground. And I remember, you know, when we were in Washington, we met with Senator Schumer and yourself, and a very poignant phrase. You know, Senator Schumer pointed to his staff. He goes, "Get a hold of Congressman Langworthy." And he looked at all of us, you know, collectively, Dave, myself, and Pierre. And he goes, "We're going to work together on this." So my pitch to everybody coming back, if you could have the Speaker of the Senate, Majority Leader, reaching out to a freshman congressman, and we're working together, and he has, I look back and said, shame on us if we can't make it work here. So that's where we're at. You know, I'll let everyone else talk, and I'll refrain. As Pierre said, we could all go on for hours. But thank you so much for your efforts.
Well, thank you very much, PJ, and you brought so much to my attention. And I have been, you know, in collaboration with Senator Schumer, and It's been a very interesting education. As we were dealing with Barcelona Harbor right off the gate after I got sworn in, dealing with the Buffalo office of the Army Corps, and then, I mean, we're talking about something literally, 3 miles away, and we have to go to a completely different branch of the Army Corps, which has a tremendous backlog, unfortunately. And that's, I think, some of the obstacles we're going to look at on the federal level right now and try to cut through it. You know, we have obstacles with our appropriations process, with some of the gridlock that we face in Washington, but Senator Schumer and I have, you know, agreed that we'll be collaborating on, you know, matters with this lake, and he represents the majority in one house, I represent the majority in the other, and we can help each other in conference committees, so we can help to get this right. Just for my own education purposes, different organizations, you know, is someone kind of coming in from the outside perspective, you know, how did each organization come to be? You know, how were they empowered? You know, so the Chautauqua Lake Association, what's your structure? So you bought, you know, you're the lead agency on all of weed harvesting and in cuttings, and you have employment, and I follow your Facebook traffic. I mean, you guys are just hauling out of there. And I watched it. Spent a few nights at a house in Mayville, you know, with my family. We had just tremendous time, and watched those things every morning while I was drinking my coffee.
I hope you didn't see a single weed.
No comment.
And Congressman, my father was one of the founders of the Lake Association.
Okay.
Before I was born.
Pierre's father's picture's right up there in our boardroom. We have a lot of heavy equipment, a lot of cutters, transport barges, various other marine vehicles. Several people have mentioned the Moby-Track fleet that has arisen. Our colleague Don Emmert from the town of Chautauqua has championed that. We have Moby-Tracks, they have Moby-Tracks. The hotel, as you've heard, has them. They are nimble, they give us options that we otherwise don't have. We have over 10 million in inventory, in heavy equipment sitting in our yard. We have had issues over the years with funding, enough crews to do the kind of job that we would like to do. We raise this, we're not crying about it, we do the best we can. The Moby-Track vessels are helpful in pre-season and post-season cleanup work. A lot of stuff accumulates, as you can imagine, over a typical Chautauqua winter. And people start arriving in March and April, and they look out and they see junk of all kinds.
Sure.
Dead trees, just various detritus from the winter. So we get out and clean that up. And then after the season, there's often a lot of stuff also. One of the things that happens over the course of the summer is that power boats cut a lot of weeds themselves with their props. This stuff washes up on shore. So there's a lot of maintenance activity. One of our previous colleagues used to call CLA the highway department for the lake. And there's something to that.
It's a great way to understand it.
It's the other, we're involved in some other stuff. One of the things that we support is the boat steward program. And I think, let's see, 24,000 people were talked to by our boat stewards last year. And I think there were almost 12,000 boats that were inspected. Notion there is you see a lot of Ohio and Pennsylvania boat stickers on these boats. The point is to keep invasive species out that might have been clinging to the hulls of those boats. And CLA, like CLP and other organizations around the table, has played a role in scientific research on the lake. The various programs that we have supported over the years, we're not unique in that. As PJ and others have mentioned, we're we're trying to pull together in support of a lake that's endangered, there's no question.
John, can I ask a couple questions? Is that right?
No, please do.
How many members do you have, and how much you get in contributions, and how large is the board?
We've got, the latest figure I had was we've got almost 1,200 members who support us. We budget for $200,000 in donations from people, from members, over the course of a typical year. Over the last number of years, the figure has been surprisingly steady, actually. Comes in within a couple of percentage points of that every year. CLA is a venerable organization. It's been around for an awful long time. PJ and others have pointed out it. We were the administrators of a herbicide program for many decades and got away from that, and CLP has taken that up. But there's a lot of different things that CLA has been involved in over a long period of time. And the organization, I think it's fair to say, has evolved. A consistent worry we have is the age of the equipment we have. ARPA funds, thanks to PJ and Dave and others, are going to fund a couple of new machines for us, including a weed cutter. That's big news. We're thinking we may be able to get a sort of a, so to speak, cutting edge vehicle that will enable us to better coordinate between Moby tracks and our bigger transport barges. And we hope to have that on the lake next summer, if all goes well. So there's a lot of, we are the recipients, the grateful recipients of roughly $1 million in a typical year. So 20% of that comes from donations. The rest of it comes from our friends at the foundations, through the Alliance, through PJ's beneficence in the county, through Andy and George in the state. So we are in many ways, we are a 501(c), but we are a quasi-government organization. We're not that far from the highway department.
Very good, thank you for that overview. And Mike, how about the partnership?
Well, we started a little bit differently back in 2016. I think Vince was county executive, and looking out of our front yards was very nice. And we were struggling trying to find the highway department who would take care of that. And it took a little time, but we've come a long way since that time, because at that point we were told it was up to our 80-year-old homeowners to take care of it. And with a little bit of help from the county and Vince and funding CLA, because they didn't have the funds to do a lot of the shoreline cleanup that was necessary, that happened. So that was the beginning of us, is that we had people calling us, and we weren't anybody, because we're a not-for-profit, no employees, we're all volunteers, and everybody's calling saying, what can we do? So that's kind of what got us going. And then we had a neighbor that lived down the road. It was part of Bowling Green. So then we decided that we had to find out where the phosphorus is, where's the nitrogen. So we bought phosphate sensors, we bought nitrogen sensors with help from the Alliance, and we're working with Bowling Green University to study the lake. So even though our main goal was herbicide, that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to introduce that back as a tool. We also had the scientific part going, is we want to know where the phosphorus is and where it is. So we partnered with Bowling Green University and starting to study it and look at the results. So that's kind of been what we're doing. And again, looking for funding. And we have 765 members we call that help donate. And then we get money from the Alliance, from the state, and local donations. And we're all working with the DEC, trying to find a new plan, or what can we do to help.
So ultimately, DEC has the final authority over decisions on this lake.
They own the lake.
They own the lake.
They own the lake, and we applied for the. It's mind-boggling sometimes, because we start in January. You know, we just surveyed the lake 2 weeks ago, and we found there's a new weed out there right now. And we've been talking about it at the Alliance, and so we've been talking to our people that survey, and we thought there was 11 acres. They come up with 90 acres. This stuff is really bad. It's gonna happen. So I said, you know, let's apply for a test area. Let's do it. They're telling me Monday that it might be October before we get a permit. I'm like, are you kidding me? We gotta do this now, because last year there was 3 to 5 acres. We got 11 acres that we thought we had that turned into 90. We gotta find out now how to treat it. So we wanna do a demonstration project, and we need to turn the wick up on them to say, hey, you've got to get in the ballgame here. I don't know if it's gonna work. North Carolina University, who's working with us, they have their ideas. I'm no scientist. I barely passed earth science. I am not a scientist, okay? So we depend on real smart people, and we employed North Carolina State University for doing our surveys for the last 4 years. And that information is going to be really helpful, because now we can overlay the 4 years. Where did we see this? What are we doing it? How are we doing it right?
So the herbicides you use might not be effective on a new family of weeds?
It is not. So this new weed that we're finding, this starry stonewort, it's a little bit different, a little bit harder. In the Alliance, with their help, they've come up with a plan of how they want to test it right now. And this is really just a test. Because if it's growing as fast as it is in 5 years, based on the numbers, it could be on the whole lake, in the whole littoral zone, which would end fishing. So it really is a problem. And so we need to move the wick up. And I've talked to PJ in the last day or two, and he's working on it, for them to say, hey, wait a minute, this needs to be a priority right now. So we can get this done in September. And it's a test, it's strictly a test. And is it gonna be an algicide, or is it gonna be herbicide? I don't know. But I've got a meeting, we're trying to set a meeting up right now with this professor that we work with in North Carolina, and get some decisions made.
So as you're creating a final lake, the Jefferson project is hopefully going to give a full mapping of what's there.
That's right. Yeah, and part of that effort that folks have also participated in is, in essence, computerizing the lake, creating a smart lake system that will allow us in consistent real time to understand what's happening not only in the watershed but in the lake itself. When that gets enacted, our ability to work in concert with one another with real-time data will be a game changer for us in bringing IBM's presence and Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute's presence here on a permanent basis could make this a model for dealing with freshwater issues, not only in the state but worldwide. We're close. We're close to putting together the partnership pieces for that.
Are all the stakeholders on board with Jefferson at this point?
You know, I'll be honest. People are opposed to Jefferson. I think there's a lot of questions, and I'll say my opinion. Nobody knows exactly what the Jefferson is going to come out and say. You know, we talked to the DEC, and pardon me to the group, but you know, we don't have a double-blind test, right? We know that herbicides are working, but is herbicide solely the purpose? We know that harvesting is working, but harvesting isn't solely the purpose. We've introduced an expansive sewer project. That's part. So there isn't any one thing we specifically said, yes, that's and I think some of the question is, what will Jefferson say? Will they say no herbicides? Will they say cut back on harvesting? But the piece of this that kind of concerns is they're focused on the harmful algal blooms. That's their main priority. Whatever they find will be a result of the harmful algal blooms. So I think the science, as exciting as it is, I think makes some people, I think it makes everybody a little anxious.
The unknown.
As to what? Yeah, the unknown. So, you know, unfortunately, you know, we talked a little bit, you know, there are people out there saying, well, the Jefferson Project is really taking that money so they can sue, and they're getting an army of lawyers. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Yeah, we talked to John Kelly. We've had meetings, and the Jefferson Project is strictly science. That's their prime focus.
With the algal blooms, how is this season?
like everything else, pier was about a third less. Is that what the number said?
It was an unusual year again. And Congressman, I'd just like to expand on what PJ and Michael were saying a little bit, in that what we know is that this is a impaired lake. There's too much phosphorus in the water body. And we have done extraordinary efforts over the last decade to reduce the amount of phosphorus coming into the lake, work in the watershed, work with the sewer treatment plants, work with the septic systems, work with expanding the public sewers. All these efforts in stream bank stabilization to reduce the amount of phosphorus that's coming into the lake. But what we don't have, which the Jefferson Project is pursuing, is a nutrient balance. The TMDL told us we have too much phosphorus in the lake and we should do all these things, most of which we're doing, to reduce the amount coming in. But we don't know if we're winning the game or we're losing the game. Are we still bringing in more than what's going out? We don't know. The Jefferson Project, one of their objectives is to produce a nutrient balance for the lake, to tell us how much phosphorus is coming in, how much is going out, and are we winning or are we still losing? Because the TMDL estimated, key word, that the majority of the phosphorus loading of the lake is coming out of the sediments in the bottom of the lake that are resident there from decades and decades and decades, going back to when they clear-cut the entire watershed of the lake in the 1800s. So if that is the biggest source of phosphorus to the lake, and that's an estimation, we've done nothing to address that pool of phosphorus. That's where the Army Corps of Engineers That's where the Army Corps of Engineers can be very helpful in advising what is the best way to deal with that. And there are methods that can be used beyond dredging. Dredging is the first one that comes to mind. But you can oxygenate the water to prevent it being released from the sediments. There's different things that you can do. That's why that Army Corps project, the Aquatic Ecosystem Restoration Project, is so important to this stuff.
And I think to just build on what both Pierre and PJ said, look, we have not always had the best reputation of working together around this lake. There's lots of different needs. The basins are very different. What happens in the water are very different. And I think what's changed in the last 3 or 4 years is we all collectively said we all want a healthy lake. How do we get there? So part of what PJ's talking about with Jefferson, I think, is residuals of what my own institution's doing against herbicides, right? So I think there's suspicions about how we get to the end game for the lake. I feel like that's dissipating over time. Jefferson project, and the reason we've invested in it, is the most comprehensive data collection process for fresh water that probably the country's ever seen. I mean, what they've done in Lake George, no independent study can match what we will know about this lake if we can finish construction of the Smart Lake process. That's not data we'll own. That's data that will be available to the state and the county and has the power to model out some of the things Pierre's talking about. I mean, what IBM's analytics and the scientists from RPI have been able to do with Lake George as a test site is, before we do something to a waterway that may not be reversible, that whole analytic process tells us what is most likely to happen if we do something. It takes the guesswork out of, gosh, I hope this works, but what if it doesn't, right? That's the power of it. It's not that it is better or worse, it's just the most comprehensive data collection effort that's been created around fresh water that we're trying to bring here ultimately, that will go into, and as I've said to PJ, we're serving a convening role simply because we have some stakeholders with some significant pockets, and we've got the organizational capacity to jumpstart this. Eventually, all this gets turned over to the county for ongoing and aggressive management of the lake. But we'll know much more than we've ever known, and we'll be able to model out human interventions.
I think one of the things we're looking at now, and the Alliance was formed a little over 5 years ago, is and I know we've talked about it at the Alliance board level, do we pivot a little bit of what the Alliance started as, and where do we go in next steps? We've maintained the lake for decades. the one thing I think we need to really focus on, and as we've all sat here, or the Alliance Board meetings, is now the management of Chautauqua Lake. But those management strategies cost money. So, you know, therein lies our concerns. But I think right now, as Michael said, and as everyone here, you know, CLA has studies that have been conducted, COP has had studies that have been conducted, is how do we take all of those studies and look at everything? And one of the pieces, I think, and I'll be honest in saying this, we've struggled with, my science is better than your science, and this is what our people are telling us. Well, no, this is what my people are telling us. But it's funny that the scientists have never aired those differences. You know, Randall's wife is one of our scientists, but the scientists don't fight over the lake. It seems everybody else does, right? So I think that's what we need to start taking a step back and focusing on. Is now looking at the science, and what does the science tell us, and how do we manage? And you know, we've had some discussions, you know, with the CLA and CLP moving forward. Is, you know, could we come to an agreement on taking the data, let's look at it, and letting somebody give us the maintenance strategy. That we want to harvest in this portion and treat over here, or vice versa. And I think that's the one piece that has kind of eluded us up until now. Because none of us, the other side of it is none of us have those expansive, you know, data and knowledge to do that. So that's, I think it's really the next step as we move forward, is now managing the lake and getting the information. Now that we are changing, as Pierre said, you know, with the phosphorus levels. And you know, interesting enough, I won't steal the birth of the Conservancy, because I think it's really unique is how the Conservancy started. But I tell people the Conservancy is like that kid who wears the bicycle helmet. They do the prevention work. They're doing the things around that aren't going to be immediately noticed. But I think now we are noticing. But it's the child who wears his bicycle helmet that we know, that's a good job. But who gets the attention? The kid who cracks his head open, and now we got to take care of it, right? So that's what the in-lake stuff is happening. Is, okay, now there's a tremendous amount of weeds this year. You know, if you would have seen this lake Memorial Day weekend, you would have been shaking your head as how does anybody? There was a path, maybe 40, 50 feet wide in Asheville Bay that I don't know if CLA, that they were part of the harvesting effort and just the boats coming in and out, but there was a swath and that was it. And you've had massive amounts of curlew pondweed down either side. But as we all know, people that are on the lake, that dies off, falls to the bottom. So again, we're in such a unique position right now in this lake, but we're working on it.
We only fight about money, DJ.
That's true.
We never argue about anything.
Exactly.
We don't have enough money. So.
Yeah, we fight. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Mike.
We get more money, we won't even argue.
Yeah.
Same as home. No change.
Just like the kids.
That's why I said same as home.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we're working, you know, to try to, you know, get those appropriations landed to help Jefferson launch. I mean, we do have an issue of a backlog in the Pittsburgh office of Army Corps. You know, it's somewhat of an impediment, but certainly not a permanent impediment. But you know, the health of this lake is really important, and you know, I just certainly read the media coverage from over the years, and they portray a situation as bickering, you know, and I think as comprehensive and cohesive as this group could be going forward, you know, I think when you and I had the discussion, and Pierre, you were there, I mean, I think it's just important that there's the right messaging to the public. Is this is all going towards an end goal, and what is that end goal? You know, what is that moonshot? You know, where do we want to be in 10 years? Because public funding cycles, it takes time to amass enough money. And what is the dollar figure to make sure that this lake is no longer impaired and is clean and, you know, is prosperous as we can make it? And if Jefferson is the first step to finding those answers, then that's where we need to go. But, you know, I think it's important to have the buy-in of everybody, you know, at the table as much as possible, because, you know, what's going to unhinge the public is when, you know, there's a group over on the side saying, no, that's not the right answer. But data is helpful. And I just, you know, this is extremely educational to me, you know, seeing everybody. I read about things, I hear about things, but, you know, hear it from you directly and your perspectives on the lake are very helpful, and I think this is the beginning of a conversation from my perspective, and hopefully we can continue it as we go forward. You know, I want to be a full partner, you know, in this lake, in this, to help ensure this lake's health for generations to come. I have a lot of amazing memories here, and hopefully a lot of families can enjoy this forever. What else do we need to know?
I'd love to.
Yeah, like,
yeah.
Whitney talked about.
Well, we're sort of the anomaly, which I'm guessing that you can kind of get that picture from just the discussions. But we're county-wide, so we're not solely focused on Chautauqua Lake. It's a huge part of our program and a huge part of our focus, but we are county-wide. And we really don't do a lot of in-lake work. And so sometimes, like PJ was saying, and I really appreciate him mentioning, sometimes it feels a little forgotten or hard to get funding for, not from the state perspective or the federal perspective, but from the local perspective. And I think one of our biggest struggles with that is that all of those wonderful funding opportunities have a match requirement that can be very hard for us, our nonprofit, to meet. And so just from my perspective, making sure that we're not forgetting about that aspect and forgetting about the watershed and the importance of the watershed, because there's a reason there's so much state and federal funding for it, is because it's important. So that's what we are. We have like around 1,000, just over 1,000 members. We're primarily donor funded, but we also do get grant support, and have worked really closely with the Alliance, and they've helped us not only with their consolidated funding, but also helping us with some of the state and federal grant opportunities. We also get a little bit of support, smaller grant from the county for some of our education work. So we, you know, we just want to continue to have a seat at the table and really appreciate being here and being remembered, I should say, that it's still a component and a piece of the puzzle that we need to make sure continues even as we figure out how we're going to move forward in Lake. The other piece that we are partnering on, the one small in-lake piece that we do, is we have done an aquatic invasive species early detection program that has been funded for a few years now through the Alliance. And one of the things that we found was the starry stonewort as well. And we are launching a pilot program separate from the algicide application that Mike was talking about. We're doing a pilot program and have a permit going into DEC imminently to try and do some work with, is it the Moby track with the forks? With the Moby tracks that you're hearing so much about. So we're going to do a pilot program for that as well. And it is an algae. It's a really, it doesn't behave normally. There've been a lot of tests to try and figure out what works. It doesn't seem like harvesting works. It doesn't seem like algicide works, but it does seem like maybe if you do them together, it kind of works. So we're going to try the Moby tracks as well. And so that's the one little bit of in-lake piece that we do. But yeah.
I'd like to share the story because the Watershed Conservancy was born in the living room of the former executive director, John Jablonski. So, you know, they are a formidable force when you look at all of their efforts. But when you think of, you know, the Alliance started with a couple of people, you know, continuing an effort. But when you see something, the watershed and the work that they're doing, starting in somebody's living room, you know, somebody's desire to continue their ambition and their piece. You know, not to slight it, it was surprising to me that I think Randall produced the information. About 52% of the funding, is that what it came out to? Over the last 5 years? Yeah, the watershed. So, I mean, not to discredit Whitney, but about 52% of the funding from the Alliance has gone to watershed projects. So we are, you know, there are certain pieces that we are contributing to. Not that we couldn't do more, yeah, you're right. But I think it's, like Whitney said, it's that piece that we often forget.
Well, and once we get some of that infrastructure in place, it's not it's a one-time expense, or, you know, then
Absolutely.
maintenance. I know that we have prioritized some of our, you know, rural water projects towards some of the, I believe one of the districts we're pursuing is in the northern part of the lake this year, and hopefully we have a successful appropriations in that area. We certainly need it across my congressional district. I mean, I could serve in Congress for 30 years and not achieve enough funding rounds for the rural water needs. the infrastructure's all aging at the same exact time. And there's just not the money in some of the communities to keep up with it. So, it's important, but, understanding and hearing the explanation that this will help us with the lake, I mean, we prioritize some of that.
Also, I want to point out that a little bit behind the scenes, we have the Soil and Water Conservation District. They're doing a phenomenal job with a lot of our agriculture. And point out cooperative extension with integrated pest management and some of their practices, and that's really helping the watershed as well.
Yeah, we partner constantly with Soil and Water District, and that's been a really wonderful partnership that I think has been really successful.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to forgive me. I need to pull the time.
Well, just give us just 5 more minutes so we can wrap. I mean, I just want anyone to have the opportunity to have final thoughts. I thought you had something you wanted to
I'll say something.
Yes, please.
So it would be naive to say that everybody agrees on how to manage.
Sure.
And, and so your perspective is probably correct. And I think it comes from, how people want to use the lake. So you have fishermen that want fruit weeds. You have people with boats that would like less weeds. You have a disagreement on the relationship between haves and weed management. And so there are some that feel if you apply herbicides, you make that water clear, and that grows haves. So as a person that's lived on the lake for 39 years and swam in it for the 16 years prior, no 2 years have been the same. We do not understand this lake. We have a much better idea of it since the Jefferson Project has been able to do the kind of data collecting that we've never been able to do. And there are so many people frustrated that seemingly we've studied this lake forever and ever and ever, spent a lot of money on it. What we do know is we have 2 different lakes. The north and south react totally differently. We've poured money into stream tributary stabilization projects without a controlled experiment. We didn't know what the level of sedimentation and nutrients were going in before we did a project. We don't know what it is doing now, and we don't know if we've had a positive outcome at all. We don't know how much of those nutrients are forever in this basin, when and how it gets released, how it reacts with nitrogen, oxygen, temperature, all those things we are getting a better sense from the Jefferson Project. But it's naive to think that when the Jefferson Project finally wires this lake, that it is just a tool. And in the end, there'll be policymakers around the table, like us, who really don't understand the science that well, that are going to have to make those decisions of how you allocate the money. And I liken it to where weather prediction was 25 years ago and where it is today. So we're going to build a model that hopefully will be sophisticated enough that will have an idea, gee, if we see these things, we could expect this. And how would we respond with our toolkit? Is that a spot herbicide? Is it a pulling of weeds? Is it, what is it? Is it going in with multi-tracks? Is it more harvesting? What would we deploy? But in the end, it's still going to come down to a bunch of volunteer people serving on boards and county legislature and elected officials looking at a limited amount of money and how best to deploy it. And there will always be people disagreeing on how that will be done. So it's naive to say that this Jefferson Project is going to be a great panacea, but it will be so much more information than we've ever had to understanding how this lake and lakes, if you want to call it that, work and how they interact. We've learned a lot that we never knew that they interact. Sometimes water goes north instead of south. Sometimes it slushes from side to side. Sometimes the wind direction. There are so many parameters. So it is like those very sophisticated weather models that have been developed over the last quarter of a century. We hope to get a little bit more sophisticated on our understanding this way.
And I suspect in 25 years, we'll look back and say, man, they thought they had sophisticated weather models then.
Exactly. But all of this is gonna cost money, and it will be ongoing. You know, this isn't a finite thing. When Jefferson Project wires this lake, that doesn't mean, you know, we're done. We're gonna have to keep at it. Equipment breaks, technology gets improved. So it is a long-term commitment to all of us that are interested and that try to fund, to keep that sustainable. And that's where some of the fighting happens at the table, because everybody has monetary needs. Yeah,
absolutely.
and they, you know, if they feel that one thing is taking money away from them, those hard feelings are understandable.
Thank you very much, Wendell. Anyone else have any other thoughts? I see when they get jumpy in the back there. It means well, thank you very much. It's been extremely informative, and you know, we have a wide open door. This is Christine, runs my office in Jamestown. You know, Phil Gow from my office in Clarence. You know, please reach out to us with any questions, thoughts, anything you want to share. You know, definitely a strong open door policy, and look forward to working with you. This was extremely helpful to me.
Funny he said that. He did. He's got a sign on his door in Congress. Welcome, walk in. And I did. Unfortunately, he was having a meeting at the very table. As soon as I walked in, hey, sorry, I'm going to walk out. But he does have a very, very open door policy. I can attest to. So thank you.